Hello, my name's Judy Bryce from J&B Tutoring. I'm going to show you a quick run through of ways that I make online tutoring for maths interactive and engaging. So I'm going to show you some of the things that I do. I'm just going to come through. So the first thing is, particularly for younger children, I use something called gamification. And this is where you try and make the lessons, you try and involve the child really heavily. So we are going to be doing things and then they get a reward from it. So the idea of all sorts of online gaming where you level up, where you get rewards for doing things, and it's sort of the same kind of idea. So one of the things is for the younger children, I'll often use some kind of game. Like here we were playing a snakes and ladders game, and they got to choose which counter they wanted to use, and then we both have large printed out onto cardboard dice, and I would get to move by rolling mine. I'd then show the camera the number I'd got, and then I would move my goldfish that many spaces, and then they'd roll their dice in their house, and then they get to move their dog. And this is just one of the very basic games. Now, to engage a child who's very, very maths phobic, that can be one of the first things we do on the very first lessons, where we're just actually playing a game. But what they don't realise is they're learning how to use this thing here that's called BitPaper. And we have all sorts of tools. We can write, we can type, and we can move the whole thing. We can pick things up and move them at just singly things, and we're getting them to get used to the tools that they're going to be using then for the actual tutoring. So this is an example where they had lots of cards, and we'd bring out them one at a time, and they had to tell me what they could see on here. So this is like 3 lots of 1. 3 lots of 1 is 3, and then they get to have their go and they get to move on the board. And then we'd sort of keep going through with different ones. And this happens to be a set all set up for the 3 times table. So that'll be just a very simple game and a bit of a starter to get them involved. Other things are used as Ludo games, and this one is in tandem with them trying to find some times table facts. And if I had given them a worksheet with 20 times table facts on, almost certainly they would have just gone into meltdown and not been able to cope with that. So the higher the maths anxiety, the more unlikely they were going to be able to cope with that. Turn it into a game, and they, for every 1 they find, they can roll their dice and move their dolphin. Or for, let's try and find 5. You try and find 5, I try and find 5, and then we'll move our game again. And I often use it as a reward for when they're doing what I'm wanting them to do, which is the actual maths, that they then get to then play the game. All right, so this is just another one where we've just got lots of cards that all can move around, and we've been playing a sort of a snap kind of game with them. There was a prompt along the top because this child was very new at learning their 3 times tables. So those are some of the things we can do where we're actually gamifying things. Other things, I'm using what's called virtual manipulatives. Now these are from something that we were doing where we were looking at place value. And we've got the ones when I can copy them, I can paste new ones in, and they're all still movable. And this is the brilliant thing about BitPaper that I use. So if you were doing this with your child, if I was teaching your child, you would have a video call open like this using Zoom. And that can be on a different device if need be. And then if your computer isn't strong enough to cope with multitasking, and then you would have the BitPaper open in on another window or on another device. And if it's all on one device, just like this, the the zoom can just hover over the top. That means I can see them. In this recording, there's only me, so I'm seeing me, but normally I would see them and they would see me. And then they can write on, this is a brilliant thing about BitPaper, they can write on it, I can write it on it at the same time. If there was a child in this as well, you would see my mouse one colour and they would have a mouse a different colour, and we would be able to write in, we could write in the same colour ink, or we could choose to write in different colour ink depending on what we felt like. So that's some more virtual manipulatives. Here's some more. This is when we were looking at negative numbers with another child. This is with a younger child when we were talking about number bonds, and we were talking about what is something's best friend, which meaning its number bond to 10. And all of these are movable, and we were able to move them around and play with them. And we also had counters. So these are our virtual manipulatives. Another thing I do with children who are sort of key stage 2 and key stage 3 is we often have sort of starters that aren't necessarily so gamified as with younger children, but here they were trying to work out what's the missing number and they've got to move it, and this is all them being involved. So they've set their mouse to be able to pick and click things up rather than write. Oops. Rather than write. So, and now I can pick them up and I can move them around. And we play the whole game with them trying to. One of the things about online tutoring is I've learned that actually it's really very good to get the children actually talking. And generally children find it quite hard to say what it is that's going on in their head as they do the maths. But when you're online, especially if they are trying to write with a mouse and finding it hard or something, I often have to be asking them, what do they want me to write? What shall I write next? What's the next thing we need to do? And they're having to learn to do that. And this actually pays dividends when children get a little bit older and they are looking towards exams, where it's crucial to have a lot of working out. And there are method marks, and children can find it really difficult to go from having done everything in their head and just be, they can do it or they can't, to then actually showing what they're doing. So things like here where we're actually having to explain, well, what would you write next? What do you want me to write? How shall I do this? Actually helps them in the future. So that's just some, these are some different ones. These are refractions, and this was all the working out. And this child found it, was on a laptop with like a trackable thing rather than a real mouse, found it very hard to write. So therefore they were telling me everything that I had to write. So I was doing the working out, they were telling me what to write, I was writing it, and then finally they were able to match up with each card as we went along. Let's move on to the next screen. This is another one all to do with matching equivalent fractions, and here we've got them all matched up in the corner when they were happy with them. This is another thing where, again, they were needing to tell me what they wanted to write. Moving through, this is where this child found it a little bit easier to write, and I was setting up some of the sums, they were doing the workings out, and then we worked our way all the way around the board. This is another example of one of the things I do where we've got this kind of thing where this is also gamification, because again, if I gave a worksheet where you're wanting to know what certain fractions added together were, they would be very reluctant to want to join in. Whereas here we start off with these cards, they can be moved around. We've got to try and work them out how to put them all into a jigsaw puzzle where they all fit, and there's more than one way of them fitting in, and you get to the end and not being able to fit them in. So I have subscriptions to lots of different math sites which enable me to have lots of good resources. So that's one. Then sometimes we do this where instead of using things on BitPaper, I share things through Zoom. So I'm just going to show you the example. If we click on this one here, we get through to this. And now I would do a shared screen on Zoom in the way I'm recording, in the same way as I'm recording this, but I'd share this screen to them, and then I would give them remote control. I can't show you on that because there is only me on the call. And then that would mean that they would then have control of the mouse if they wanted to, and they would be able to choose what to do within the game. So we can use that one. There's another great one here, which I use a lot with my pupils, which is Algebra Tiles. And here we could set up expanding a particular equation. So have 2x plus 1 all times by x. And with these visual things, we can very clearly see that x times x is x squared, and then 1 times x is x. Our final answer is 2x squared plus x. And these kind of visual manipulatives, and that there are an awful lot on this particular website that I use a lot with the children, really, really handy for them to use. So that's what was used for these. Now, for most of the younger children, I try as hard as I can be to be a worksheet-free zone. As we start to get older and more capable, Key Stage 3, we start needing to be able to do exam-style questions. And this is a particular page with some exam-style questions that this pupil was having a go, and they were orange and they were actually, I think I was orange and they were green. I'm not sure. We were working it through, and you know, I was giving them lots of extra explanation, and we were working on it. And this is for another slightly older child, again, working towards GCSE, and orange is him and red is me in this case. And again, we were working on this collaboratively. Now, one of the things, as I say, generally it's worksheet-free zone, except for the parents where we have made an agreement either at the very beginning of tutoring or at the stage when the child is starting to feel a lot more confident. And that's when I start to introduce a homework with children. And I use a system called 5-a-days. And here there are, I think there are 7 different levels. Actually, yeah, I think it's 7. I think it's 7 levels of these worksheets, and there's like basically one for every single day of the year at each of these levels. And I email them through to the parents. They print off that week's worth of sheets, and then the idea is that the child does about 5 minutes. There's usually 5 questions that, roughly speaking, take between 5, maybe up to 10 minutes. I always say don't spend any more than 10 minutes. And it's a proven thing. The topics on here, this is pasted in from a child who'd done it. Then at the end of the week, parents scan them, send them back to me. I paste them back into the BitPaper, and then I go over any misconceptions with the child that next coming lesson. So this is one that's pasted back in, and then we went through it. So 5-a-days, a great system because they are randomly generated questions that are coming back across all topics. So in the course of a week, you will have probably touched on most topics. You'll definitely have had fractions and percentages and general arithmetic. You'll have probably had some shape and space and some data handling, all sorts of things all in there. And this is really good. You imagine you've got plates spinning, and you've got children which eat, got all these different plates spinning on little sticks, and each one of those is a different topic. If we can keep flicking each topic on a very regular basis, it means that it not only goes into the long-term memory, but it stays in there, and it's not just in the transient working memory and very short-term memory. So it's a really proven way to helping the child. It also really helps me, because if I start to teach a child, I can find out incredibly quickly, within 6 weeks, say, I would be able to find out all of the, near enough where all the gaps in their knowledge are. Whereas if we started off and we worked on a particular topic each week, it would take months to get to the point that we had covered each of the topics and found each time where the gaps were. So this helps me find very, very quickly where the gaps are, and then I know how to tailor the lessons to go back to the beginning to find things in, go back and fill in the gaps. So if their gaps are filled in, so for example, we can start seeing there's a load of fraction questions, but it might actually turn out that they don't actually know their times tables. Because they don't know their times tables, they then can't do the fraction questions. And that's how we end up doing some things like those starters I showed you right at the beginning of, like, we were practicing 3 times tables. And that was because that was something that actually we found that there was a gap. And we needed to fill that in as well as moving forward with the normal kind of lessons. So those are all the things I want to show you on that. Now, the other thing is to say about, well, what do you need to be able to use your end to be able to have effective online lessons with me? So my answer really is, ideally, you want your child to be using a laptop. They can do it on an iPad, but there's an awful lot of functionality that doesn't work very well with Zoom and doesn't work very well with BitPaper. And it means that they will end up being much more passive. And that's really not what I want for them. I want them to be as involved and engaged in the lesson all the way through as is possible. So ideally, yeah, a laptop. There are functionality issues with Chromebooks. Which obviously are quite a bit cheaper than a normal laptop. And as I say, that there are functionality issues. So ideally, you want a real laptop. What else do you need? Well, ideally, you don't want them to be on the trackable on the on a laptop. You want them to be using a real mouse, because they will find it a lot easier. Now, things I use, I have, I'll show you on the camera, I've got a graphics tablet, and that's the pen that goes with it. I can't reach with the camera to actually show you the tablet. It's about that big. Now I use that, and that means that I can write really very easily. I can write as easily on here, just about. I can write just about as easily on here as I could on normal paper. And it means that I can use the BitPaper very, very easily. Now, if you ask me what things would I recommend, I would actually recommend that you buy one too. I bought mine from Argos for about £35, £36. And it's, for me, obviously, because I do this all day, every day, it's more than paid for itself. But actually for a child, it's less than the cost of 1 week's worth of lessons. And it's a brilliant piece of kit. And it means that you have got your child ready, so they can write as easily on the board as I can. And that will make a big difference to them. And those are my pupils who have, the parents have gone ahead and bought one of these. It's made a really big difference. The other thing is to do with sound quality. And you need to be using an external microphone. Otherwise, I really can't hear your child very easily. It will be tinny and muffled and very hard for me to understand, and I have to keep asking them to repeat themselves, and I hate having to do that. So because it's not good for them to have to keep repeating themselves. So one of the good things is that they could have, they may well already have, a gaming headset like this. And that means that they can then hear me very clearly. And it also means that I can then hear them really clearly. So yeah, microphone. You also see the webcam side of it is really not important, because actually you end up very small, they end up very small, to me, and vice versa. So it doesn't really matter as long as the laptop has got a webcam, which it will do. So absolutely crucial is to have a laptop, really not an iPad, and then to have external microphone, because the microphones in laptops are awful, and it's like sometimes it can be listening to a Dalek, which, you know, it's just no fun for anyone. So external microphone on some kind of headset. Doesn't have to be a gaming headset like that. It can just be normal, like sort of a little earbud type of headphones that you would put into a normal phone. Obviously, you've got to be careful with what jack it is, but you know, the standard ones, not necessarily the iPhone ones. Anything that can be obviously plugged into the computer, into the laptop, so that they can hear me really clearly. And ideally, yes, get a graphics tablet. As I say, they start at about £30. They go up to hundreds of pounds, and I certainly wouldn't recommend anyone spending that. That's if you're an architect or a graphic designer, you kind of buy one of those top end ones. No, we don't need that one. We need the absolute basic kind of model, but it will make quite a big difference to your child in the lessons. And also to have, if they can't have one of that, definitely have a real mouse, not the sort of trackable on the laptop. So those are all the ways that I can help your child to have good, exciting, interesting, engaging online lessons. So I offer quality bespoke lessons. And I am a professional. I'm a qualified teacher. I've got decades of experience as a teacher and as a tutor. And I put a lot of time and effort into planning and preparing and then delivering really high quality lessons with the child. Some of the things I've shown you today are the more fun side of it. There's also a lot more serious side of it, where I'm actually really teaching actual content that they may not have been taught before, that they need. So it's a quality service. What I'm not is, I'm not a homework help. So I'm not there for, they rock up at whatever time the lesson is, and they say, I've been doing this at school, this is my homework, I need you to help me do my homework. That's not what I offer. I'm not a homework help. There are other tutors that offer that service, but that's not the service that I offer. There's nothing wrong in that kind of service, but that isn't the service that I deliver. Now, one of the things is, although I say that, if while we're doing some work, I would usually ask near the beginning of the lesson, what have you been doing at school this week? And if they come out with something and they start to tell me about something and that they find it really hard and they don't understand it, yes, at that point, often I will go off at a tangent from what I planned and prepared, you know, extensively for. I will go off at a tangent and we will cover that. Now, because, as I say, I'm a very experienced teacher, I'm able to then do that bit on the fly. But because I'm on my computer, it means I have access to all the hundreds of files on my computer, and I'm able to bring up resources and paste them straight into BitPaper of the things that they're talking about, in a way that if I was actually in your own home, if they said, oh, I need to do more about I don't know, something or other, I wouldn't have that in my bag with me. And that's one of the really good things about online teaching, is that I have every resource possible available on my hard disk, and I can just bring it up. It may take a minute or two, a moment or two for me to just say, hold on, bear with me, and I will go off and I will try and bring in the in the resource. But I'm able to do that. So yeah, generally not a homework help, but I will change tack if needed. So the other thing is the idea about, for the older children in particular, we are doing a system of the 5-a-days, and then for the oldest children, they may well be doing past papers. I do teach all the way up to GCSE, although I only have a limited number of slots at any one time for children who are older. It's because it takes a lot more time of my time outside of the lessons. Now, there is a price differential between children in Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2, and then there's a jump up to Key Stage 3 and 4. And it's because of this, it takes me a lot more time outside of the lessons to prepare for the lessons, but then also to do the marking that is associated with those older style lessons. We get through a lot of content, and then generally speaking, I need them to practice it. So I will often ask them to do certain number of questions on the BitPaper during the week, and then I come back and I check it. Also, they can do things on paper and then they can scan them in. Now, if they are doing the 5-a-days and the past papers, that's a lot of things that, you know, it's a bit of a commitment as a family. It's not just for 1 hour they are with Judy, she's teaching them, and that's it. As I say, for the older children, part of the price is included the 5-a-days and the backup by me of them doing it. And then, as I say, with the older ones, past papers too. So you need to be prepared to encourage them and make it part of their day that they spend this 5 minutes. One of the things that works best, you know, anecdotally with my pupils is literally at the point when they are about to have tea, the parent says to the child, tea's nearly ready. They go off and they go and wash their hands or whatever, and they come back and they sit for the last couple of minutes just before the food is ready, and they do their 5-a-day. At that point, it's done. Then they have the tea. They don't have to worry about it. I'm only asking for your child to do 5, maybe maximum of 10 minutes a day, and that would be what would be on a regular basis. Add into that, if they are just in the sort of coming in to land towards an exam, then obviously they would be needing to be doing preparation, and as I say, that's all included in the price. So I'm really hoping that I've been able to show you that online lessons are not just a mimic of doing some worksheets and they're doing it their end. I'm talking to them my end. It's absolutely not, or certainly not the way I teach. Very involved, very engaging, and the children really love them. And there've been very few when I chose to go online rather than in person, very few of the children who actually didn't, after a week or even just a few minutes of it, say, actually, I think I like this better. It does mean that I don't get lots of lovely cups of coffee as I travel around the countryside, but it actually means everything I've got on my computer, I've got available to be able to then use with your child on that day. And that's gold dust compared with traveling and face-to-face. So try and put away the idea of that face-to-face is best, because actually, I have to say, I genuinely don't think it necessarily is. There is a place for face-to-face, but certainly at the moment, in the current climate, online is here to stay, and it's certainly here to stay with me. I won't be going back. So I really hope that I'm going to show that there's lots of good things about online tutoring, and as I say, quality service from a professional. So I really hope to hear from you soon. Thank you. Bye.